Hi, I'm Lisa Entwistle, founder of Wealthy Living and host of Wealthy Living Radio Show. Through conversations with my guests, my intention is to help you, the listener, to live a life where you can have the knowledge, confidence and clarity to make choices that support your well-being, both personally and professionally. Modern day living is full of choices, innovation and information. Yet research shows that there is a decline in the health and well-being in our young people. There is an increase in the number of children who are emotionally unstable, have been diagnosed with mental illness, behave in antisocial ways, and even the rates of suicide are continuing to rise. Are the modern world challenges affecting the coping ability in our young people? It seems to me that there is a really important need to improve everyone's understanding of resilience. With a world full of uncertainty, resilience is a vital ingredient for everyone to thrive. It is an essential skill for parents and carers of children to teach and role model if we want to improve the well-being of our young people. So to chat about raising resilience in children, including our well-being as parents and how that affects our children, and some simple measures we can implement today, is my very special guest, founder of Orchestrate Coaching and Consulting, Mary Lou Coombs. So through her coaching, mentoring, writing and facilitating, she helps children and families live a highly purposeful and empowering life. Through numerous formal qualifications, being a mother to her two divine young boys and her life story, she brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to the topic. So Mary Lou was born in Lebanon and moving to Australia at the age of 10 without speaking a word of English has had lasting impacts on building her resilience and creating the life that she now lives. So focusing on working with children and instilling empowering mindsets from early on in their life, her mission is to empower them to have a strong sense of self-belief stemming from their core to achieve anything they set out to do and to be someone in their life that they can reach out to without receiving any criticism or judgment. She loves and is driven by connection, similar to myself. to both, connection to self and connection to others, something that the Wealthy Living mantra really lives by. She weaves yoga, meditation, and all of her life experience into her work to create magic for children. So thank you so much for coming in today, Mary Lou. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, wonderful lady. Thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm really excited about today's conversation because I think that it can go in lots of different ways. It's really quite complex. And at the same time, there's a lot of simplicity to it as well about some of the things that people can really implement to really make a difference in the lives of themselves, their children, their families, and their dynamic and ripple effect to all those that are around them. So I'm really looking forward to really getting into a bit of a discussion, cracking beneath the surface and seeing where this goes.
Wonderful.
So maybe we can start by just talking about, for you and in your experience and your knowledge, what does resilience mean?
It's such a hot topic right now, isn't it? It's such a hot word that I feel like a lot of people throw around. I want my child to be more resilient. I want my child to be more resilient. But, oh, my gosh, they fall over and I need to go and pick up all the pieces for them. And resilience really, for me, comes from adversity. It really comes from having stuff not go so well for you all the time and how you bounce back from that.
Yeah.
That's basically, in a nutshell, what resilience means.
And do you think that this whole idea of bouncing back, because to me that's also what I see resilience meaning. So do you think that kids are really struggling today with being able to do that?
100%. More so because helicopter parenting happens a lot more. I really hate putting labels on parenting, but in my mother's days, we never had any of these labels for parenting. They just parented, right? But these days we've got mindful parenting, helicopter parenting, this type of parent. And it's like, why can't we just parent and be part of all of that parenting? Because I know for me personally, I take a bit of all that different, these labels come into play into my own parenting. But I do believe, like I was speaking to parents the other day about this in a way that we do not allow our children to just go outside and play without being monitored, without somebody being outside watching them. And I had someone who came to my house almost fall over that my boys opened the door to the front house and went outside to play and kick their footy without me being around. Like they really just were shocked by that. And that just in my own home shows me on a scale of what's happening outside in the world. And in kids not being allowed to, I mean, I don't know about you, but I was able to go ride my bike until sundown.
Oh, yeah, it was like get home.
Dinner time.
Yeah.
And we'd all come back.
Absolutely.
And I mean, how classical is that? We don't feel safe. And that's a whole different conversation that we can get into, but we don't feel safe as parents to just allow our children to go out there and be children anymore. And so there's a lot of orchestrated play, orchestrated safety around children. So how are children supposed to fall and get back up and learn from that? It just doesn't, we're keeping children so safe. We don't want them to feel a lot of stuff that we might have either felt or experienced, or, this belief that the world is a big bad place because of social media and the access to everything that we have now. I mean, it could go into so many ifs. I don't know. But, yeah, I just don't believe that we allow our children to go out there. And so I see it as a huge problem that children, have the hardest and biggest emotions over the smallest things and just don't know how to cope. They don't know how to cope with being told no. They don't know how to cope with not everybody wanting to be their best friends. And I'm talking about primary school age children here. I'm not even talking about the high school kids yet.
So do you think that part of this reason, I mean, there's so many reasons that would contribute to to children having low resilience, and yes, going out to play and just being able to explore and make choices for themselves in situations, even when things don't go necessarily so well, builds resilience. And if we're not giving them those opportunities to make choices, then they don't have the skills to be able to know what to do in situations that don't pan out so well.
100%. And I know the parents come from a very good place. Like in our heart, we want to do everything for our child, right? We don't want them to feel pain. We don't want them to miss out. We don't want them to feel left out. So we go in trying to fix a lot of this stuff for them. But if children don't feel these things and don't experience these things, how will they ever build resilience in life?
Yeah.
So it's a real, and I just think in just that, I know for myself, I had to go inwards and kind of go, hang on, why am I doing this for my child? Can I step back? Can he learn and do this himself?
Yeah, and I think that there's this fine line with all of that between, I mean, like you talked about before, all the labels with parenting. One of the other labels that comes up is the attachment parenting. And a lot of people which are into positive parenting would see that as a positive thing. And I'm not saying whether it is or it isn't. I'm not here to make any judgments about types of parenting. But even with that one, it's even the idea of that fine line between tough love to let them learn themselves and nurture.
100%. And I think what happens though in some communities, and I've heard this just with mothers that I've worked with going, oh, but I really want to do the positive parenting stuff and the attachment parenting stuff, which is absolutely beautiful and comes like attachment theory and attachment studies shows how the brain develops.
Yes.
It's actually under a microscope, like how the brain develops to be able to handle things better. But what I think some parents do take out of the context with that is thinking that attachment parenting, meaning that you need to do everything for your child.
Yeah.
And I think, attachment parenting is about understanding the child's need and holding the space for them to learn rather than doing it for them.
Yeah.
If that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, and it totally makes sense. But I think that this is the problem with so many labels and different types of parenting, that even if we did decide to dabble in some of them. And I like the idea of dabbling and taking bits that, that feel right and wrong or for each individual person.
Yeah.
But the negative side of that as well is that often we don't really understand because we're just taking bits and pieces, we don't really understand the full meaning behind a certain way of doing it.
Yeah,
So therefore there's a danger in taking little bits of information.
But let's just go back to your mother. Did she take information from anyone?
No, it was intuitive.
Or did she actually do it from her heart and just parent you?
Absolutely. But in saying that, there is a lot of people in our generation who are growing up with quite a lot of wounds based on certain aspects of parenting as well. So I think that it's about finding this balance between having this whole lot of information and being able to know what to do with it, but also allowing each individual child or soul or whatever you want to term it to also have their own pathway and learn from their own experiences.
100%.
And that
100%.
Building the resilience.
And, it's really funny you touched on that as well, because I know with my mother now, she turns around and says to me, Mary Lou, you're doing such an amazing job with your children. I wish I had the information that you apply in your life.
You're like, no, you don't.
And I'm like, well, but what it does come down to as well, really, at the bottom of it, whatever label you want to look at into parenting, right, what it really comes down to is conscious parenting. And what conscious is, just being a conscious being and know why you're driven to do whatever it is that you're doing. And there's no right or wrong. Like, I don't believe there's any right or wrong, especially in parenting, because there's no textbook that's ever been written from A to Z, for every single, yes, sure, we have the psychology, but when you have your child, you're a person, they're a person, and there's a whole bunch of dynamics that go into that, and there's no textbook that's ever going to be able to be written about that. You write your own textbook, right, as you go along in your journey. But I think it's really imperative to ask ourselves as parents, as we would in a job, as we would in friendships, as we would in anything, why am I doing what I'm doing? And understand your thinking and your behaviour behind it.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. So no matter what style you want to take, ask that question of yourself. I think it's a really powerful question.
Which often really comes down to your own personal development journey as well, because if you are going to ask those questions, that's actually delving into yourself, into your own beliefs, into your own values. So everything starts with self in the end. So,
100%.
We can't really be good at our work. We can't really be good at our friendships, our relationships, our parenting unless we really know ourselves. And that's like a lot of the work that I do is really about self-awareness, and self-awareness isn't just a simple on the surface thing. It's really understanding what are your strengths, what do you need improvements on, what are your values, are they even your values, what are your beliefs, are they even your beliefs,
right,
are they conditioned, are they based, they're all going to be based on your experiences at some point, but how true are they in this next part of your, I suppose, life story, which is the parenting part.
Yeah. And it's really even funny that you touch on that, because I'm a big believer, and my boys have definitely taught me this, where I thought I have done so much work on myself previously to having children. And when they came along, they showed me how much more work I needed to do.
They are your mirrors. They are there to show you everything.
It does come back to self. It does, like what you said, in digging deep into ourselves and what comes up for us in order to be able then, to move forward in the parenting journey.
Absolutely. So another thing which also came up to me in my mind when you were talking about the resilience piece for children and being able to have those experiences to be able to gain those tools and those skills is the idea of the world today having all this instant gratification. So...
Well, let me just share something with you that happened at karate the other day, where my boys now have to go to their sessions on their own and the other one is watching. So rather than them together and karate only taking half an hour, it's now taking an hour and 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And they have to sit there and watch the other one doing their session because they're in different classes now. And they want technology the whole time, and I'm like, no, you can actually sit and watch your brother do this for a little bit, because there's a lesson in that as well.
Absolutely.
And sure, it would make my life so much easier if I just handed my phone over and for the whole time they can just play a game on it. But what is that going to really teach them as well?
Yeah.
So
yeah, and all of that, that's so true, that patience piece. But also with instant gratification, I think that one other part of the process is that idea of even the resilience that comes with saving for something they want to save up at, rather than just getting something as soon as they want it, or just, those sort of things.
So recommend for parents to teach their children to save up about things. And it blew me away that when my son, he's now 6, when he was 4, he was saving up for this Lego, little $20 Lego thing. And he had saved up to 18, and we were at the shops and he saw something else, this like little Batmobile. He was obsessed with like Batman and cars and whatever at the time. And I said to him, oh, it's $18. Did you want to buy that, or do you want to still wait and get $2 more for your Lego? And I was blown away that a 4-year-old could say, oh, actually, no, I want my Lego. I'm going to keep on saving up.
That's brilliant.
And that just showed me how, even as adults, sometimes we don't do that, because we are so in such a throwaway society now that we want everything yesterday, right?
Yeah.
And I'm even guilty of that. So it was just really beautiful to be reminded when he was 4, he's 6 now, that no, we can wait.
Absolutely.
We can wait and we can save up for things, and we teach them such beautiful lessons from that, rather than, being able to have whatever they want and then they don't even appreciate it and it means nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true. I mean, even to the extent, that's, the example of, saving that came to mind for me, but even we do it, that instant text, that instant message, that instant being able to, someone being able to contact you at that time, and almost then our expectations being that they need to respond instantaneously. And if somebody doesn't respond instantaneously, the emotional process that a person then goes through, and we're going through it as adults, and we didn't even grow up in that world. So a child that's growing up in that instant world.
I was just about to say that.
How
Imagine
much,
a teenager
that's
with a
right,
phone that's
lower their emotional agility
Yeah.
to be able to deal with a circumstance when they're not getting the instant gratification. So I'm feeling like that piece is definitely something that needs to be worked on in order for the resilience to be increased.
100%. And a huge part of the resilience as well, and studies have shown how much technology has affected our ability to build resilience when we rely on technology so much. There's actually been studies that are done around this, and I'll give you an example. Like if you're out with your child, and this is not just resilience, but this is compassion, this is gratitude, this is just being able to view how the world happens, right? And I'm going to do a disclaimer right now, because I am not judging anybody, and I have done this myself because we all need it sometimes. Again, though, I just invite parents to think consciously when they are doing it and how long they're doing it for. But when we go out and we put children in front of iPads, in front of phones, and give them those things, like I just said before with me limiting that, take this scenario. You're out at a cafe and you want to have a drink in peace or lunch in peace, and you give the iPad over to your child. Walking through the door is a mother with a double pram. Your child has got his nose so buried in the iPad that he doesn't notice the waitress being nice and actually opening the door to allow the mother to come in and helping her out. Down a little further down, somebody spills their drink all over the table, and the person next to them grabs all these napkins and helps them out. Your child has missed all of that. Your child is so buried in the iPad that they don't know what is happening around them in the world, and they're missing all these acts of kindness. They're missing all these things that are happening because their nose is in technology.
Yeah, and that's such a good way of framing it and thinking about it, because I think that when people have talked about this idea of giving your iPad in a cafe, and I'm guilty of it, we've all probably been guilty of it at times, it's more about that peaceful and not disturbing others and all of those things, which all come into it. But this whole idea of actually taking yourself out of the learning experiences in life based on just not being present wherever you are is a really important aspect, because like we talked a little bit about offline, we were talking about how we learn through experiences as opposed to learning through just what we can verbally communicate to our children, because verbal communication is very age appropriate and very age specific. And obviously every kid is a little bit different at different ages to how much they can understand. But generally it's still, sometimes I even find with my children, I can be talking to them and trying to teach them a lesson and trying to impart wisdom. And after probably the first minute, all they're probably hearing is blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. If we were able to measure the brain waves and everything, I guarantee that's exactly what would be happening.
But I feel good in saying it all.
Yeah.
But the truth is that it's right. They are just hearing blah, 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 blah. Then mum goes again.
Yeah.
So it's the experiences which really impart the difference and teach the real lessons. And you're right, in those circumstances when we're not engaging with what goes around us, like I'm a massive people watcher and I love human behaviour, and someone can say, oh, where's that shop? And I'll know because I've always got my eyes looking at everything.
Exactly.
I'm a real life observer. Yeah. I love it. But, and I've always loved it. And you look at kids in prams before they're taught otherwise, they love it too. They're always looking around. But yeah, this whole idea.
I thought you were going to say something different.
No,
because there's a lot of kids.
Now there is, but there wasn't when I had kids. But when mine were babies. But yeah, even that whole idea of, and even then the interaction between them and the waitress of like, excuse me, child, what would you like to eat? And they've really got it's like you're disrupting what they're doing rather than you disrupting what they're actually here to do.
Exactly, right?
Exactly.
So these are just little things.
That ability to relate, that ability to communicate, that ability to know what's going on around us. And, yeah, and then just the ability, just the relationship between the parents. So, yeah, that's a really good example of...
It's just one of many, I just think even it's really important when kids do fall for us as parents and educators and, carers with children to actually acknowledge when a child has fallen and feels the feelings and acknowledge that they've felt that and that it's okay, and then for them to come out of that. I think that sometimes, because we're not in a society that's built to talk about emotions, to talk about, the things that go on in our life. It's almost like just move along and get on with it. And that's, again, not resilience either. That's just teaching children how to shut down and not really, deal with their emotions. So there's so much around this. But, this is why a whole project has been built around it, the Resilience Project. If you look them up,
they're fantastic.
And this is the basis of what they really do talk about. And you have a look at a lot of our prominent psychologists, massively talking about this with children and how we can help children with this, because if children do not have the basis of this learning with resilience, this is where it spirals down into anxiety, depression, and a whole bunch of other stuff for children. Where you said originally about, mental well-being.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And, and I think the other side of it is, because we've talked a lot about, I suppose, a little bit about, and we could talk a million more hours about, is the emotional resilience. Yes. But I think that another part of it, before I want to come back to more of that, is because this is stuff that can be done super easily, where a parent doesn't necessarily have to have huge knowledge on emotional stuff, is the physical side. So in order to be more resilient, we need better sleep. We need to be exercising. We need to be eating well. So all of these physiological things that can take place in order to be able to give someone better well-being. There is mothers, no sleep. It's like, impossible to actually function properly. And it's the same with kids. If they don't get enough sleep,
it's huge.
They can't make good decisions.
It's huge. And they can't cope as well. And just think about a child who is being fed something that their bodies can't cope with. You know, like for us in my family, I have celiac, and my kids have difficulty dealing with certain foods and colours in foods. And I've just been very lucky that I can, I'm aware of that and can manage that a bit better. So, yeah, 100%. You do need to look at all those physiological factors as well.
And I think that that's a really good place for a lot of parents to maybe start if they don't feel like all the other stuff feels really difficult, and do I say the right things, do I not, and there's all these complications, and that's when people like you come in really well for helping parents with that building the emotional intelligence.
And I share a lot of free resources on my website and on my page with a lot of things that have helped us. So, in directing you in where you might need to go look.
Exactly.
To help you with these things.
And I think we should talk more about some of that. But I think it is a really important place for parents to start in that idea of just start with the physical first.
Yeah, 100%. And just start with being aware. I think for me, awareness is 50% of a problem solved. Once you're aware that something is not working for you and your family, or that your child needs help in a certain area, then you can take the appropriate steps, whatever they may be, to, seek that help for you or for your family or for your child.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Like everything starts in awareness, and it's self-awareness, teaching your kids to be self-aware as well. Yeah. So when how are they feeling? Like what's going on for them in those particular moments? Are they feeling tired? And kids do not like to ever say they're tired. They will deny their tiredness till their cows come home. So then it's for you to be able to parent them in those moments and go, no, okay, whatever they're saying, they have showing signs. What does tired signs look like? And be able to identify that so that you can make appropriate decisions. Are they getting enough exercise? Are they getting, is their body moving? How many hours have they been sitting? I mean, at school, how many hours are they sitting?
It's huge. That's a huge one, actually.
That's right. And all of the, and what are they eating throughout the day? And it doesn't have to be, if they're not eating certain things at their school hours, then maybe make those up before and after school. If you're finding it really difficult during those lunch hours, it's like over a full day, are they getting balanced amount of food?
Those things make a huge difference. And you're right, that's where parents can start.
Yeah. So, I think that that's a really doable place to start. And then from then they can, I think it's really about better communication, looking at the values, all of those things which sometimes are really hard. So I think maybe what would be really good to talk about is some of these communication skills.
Within
the family, as well as their own and how they communicate generally, like how important is that? How important is their own communication skills? And how do you communicate things that are age appropriate?
What I also think that with parents, what we need to do is step back, and when there's different styles of communication. You can talk at children or talk with them.
Yeah.
And when you choose to talk with them, you're actually asking questions more than telling.
Yeah.
You are allowing the child to come up with their own solutions to their problems, therefore creating that resilience. But if we tell a child, oh, this is my experience and this is what you should do and this is, what I would do, a child is not learning how to be resilient. A child may, like before, even just hear the blah, blah, blah and not really, because learning really comes from embodiment.
Yep.
And
absolutely.
That's not what's happening in this instance. So when we talk about communication, it really does come down to, are we talking at the child or are we talking with the child? And when we choose to talk with, we're side by side with the child to come up with a solution to the problem. And I think also I really want to point this out here, is as parents, we think that we must solve all of our children's problems, but that's not our role. Our role is to actually just hold them when they fall.
Yeah.
Just think about that.
I think
Even
that's probably our role in
experiences.
life, really, just generally, isn't it, with other people, and not be taking on, whether it's our child, our partner, our friend.
Yes.
We're not there to manage their emotions necessarily. Obviously, if it's your child, you've got to guide them a little bit more than another adult.
Yes.
But ultimately, we're not there. They're there to feel that everyone's there in life to feel their own emotions.
Exactly, and to walk their own path and their own journey. That's really what it comes down to. And I think as parents, we forget that. Sometimes it's easier for us to apply to other people, but we forget that about our own children, that this child has also come here with, this journey that they need to learn and grow into. And it just really puts a different spin on things, even in parenting. It takes the weight off, I feel. For me, it definitely did when I accepted that my son was a certain way because this was just the way he is, rather than me needing to always be fixing everything for him.
Yeah.
That's just a huge part of it for me.
I know that this is putting you on the spot, but can you think of an example whereby, just so people, the listeners, can really maybe understand it, where you're speaking with them and not at them?
So examples in my own life with my own children would be, let's just say we had a lot of issues in, foundation and grade 1 around friendships.
Yeah.
And I mean, really school, if you look at it properly, it's all about friendships more than anything, and, building the resilience and building all those social skills. So when, we were having issues around friendships, talking at them would have been, coming from a space where I think that by my sharing my experience, and sometimes, there's a place for this, right? But sharing my experience around friendships and telling them what to do would be talking at them.
Yeah.
Or you could choose the path, which I did with my eldest in particular, in asking him, what does he want from a friendship? Is it okay? So it's almost like I went into coaching mode with him, really, is what it is.
Yeah.
And you do have to be your child's coach, is what ultimately it looks like. But, talking with them is asking them questions about, in this instance, what is it that you want from a friend? What does friendship look like to you? How did that make you feel? And it's really important to remember that your child will also make others feel this way. Our children are not perfect. They're sometimes going to be the person who leaves somebody else out. So I actually think it's really good for my child to feel left out, because he'll know what that feels like. And in turn, hopefully he won't do it to another child.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Absolutely.
So talking and reminding them about, remember when you felt like this? How does it make you feel now? What do you want out of this? What words can you use? What can you say? So all of these sort of things, it's almost like, coaching your child.
Yeah, and it sounds
questions.
like you're taking all those opportunities when things actually happen to use those opportunities as the learning experiences
100%.
for them. So growing their resilience and growing their ability to recognise their emotions. And like you said, when you talked about in that situation, like friendships and what does it mean to you, you're also helping them develop their own value system.
100%, because what friends mean to me and what they mean to them may be very different things. And what I tolerate from friends may be different to what they want to tolerate and what it means to them. And this is a huge thing, is I think as parents, and this is a whole other huge topic that I'm going to be writing about actually in my book, is our values system, and really understanding our values and not putting our own values onto our children, and not taking on their values of what, things might mean to them as our own.
Yeah.
So it's a really huge. Yeah, for me, I feel like understanding our values is where a lot of things get driven by in parenting, and not projecting that onto our own children as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Values-based choices are the key, really, to so much. And I think that we can only make values-based choices as adults or as children when things don't necessarily always go right, because that is almost like our data to being able, or our intel to really being able to work out what is and what isn't important to us. Because if it pisses us off,
100%,
then
you've hit the nail on the head, actually.
Then that is actually going to go, well, if this really annoys me and triggers the hell out of me, then there's a reason for it.
100%. And think about this, right? If we also are able to teach our children to learn to be okay with what they don't want, and rather than seeing it as a failure or something really horrible happening in their life, building the resilience from that is, well, now that I know what I don't want, I can actually work out what it is that I do want.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
And that flip on it.
And it's the same thing as it made me think of in the beginning of this conversation when you mentioned something to do with pain and letting a child go outside to play and they hurt themselves and all that. I mean, that's physical pain, but whether it's physical or emotional pain, the pain is actually the gold.
100%. And it's about teaching them how to deal with that pain and not making it about all their life.
Yeah, because it's kind of a lot of people are really taught that pain is a bad thing just because it's uncomfortable. But really, it's about getting comfortable with the pain.
Exactly. That's where the learnings really do truly happen and our growth really does come from.
And we want to, if we sort of as parents or otherwise keep taking this pain away from them or keep band-aiding this pain, then we're not allowing them the opportunity to really gain resilience.
No, and that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And I think that what I encourage parents to also really look at is when we do band-aid their pain, where is that pain coming up for us? And is it something that we need to heal within ourselves?
Which is a whole nother big topic.
It is. Huge topic.
A massive topic.
But it is important that we also do touch on that because I think, when you asked before, what if parents find that too hard? That is where the difficulty comes in helping our children with that because we haven't healed our own wounds. So how can we possibly look at our children's wounds? And, of course, then we want to Band-Aid them up.
Yeah.
So I think there's,
it's definitely a massive area. But this whole idea, I mean, for someone like yourself who is a very conscious parent and obviously, it's what you do for a living and it's something that's highly of high value to you. And I'm sure you believe, like I do, it should be of high value to everyone if we want to have a world where people are sort of relating in a much better way and people are generally more resilient and less projection and all those things. But it does take patience and it does take a lot of patience in order to be able to even the example of talking with them, not at them. All those things take patience.
Everything is practice as well.
Practice of patience.
Practice patience, awareness.
That's right.
I can tell you even now there are times where I sit outside of myself, looking down almost. I feel like it's a real surreal experience going, especially when I'm learning something new, and it's almost like I'm an outsider looking at myself, still integrating it with my learning and going, oh, okay. And, everything is repetition and habit. And so don't expect yourself to be able to just do this. It takes a lot of practice, work, patience, effort to be put in if this is something that's important to you and you want to integrate in your life.
Yeah, and what's really hard, though, is that we're living in a much faster paced world where people are doing more than they've ever done. They're trying to have a job, they're trying to keep up relationships, they're kind of parenting that, and world is they're already feeling overwhelmed.
But I think it's also a choice, Lisa. I think it's a choice. Again, it comes down to being aware.
Yeah.
And when we do have all that busyness, asking ourselves what is all that about.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, understand your values.
Yeah.
And understand and align yourself with those values is really what it comes down to.
Yeah. I actually, and I think this is something with anything we're trying to practice or improve at, or just, if we're just wanting a pathway of growth, which... for ourselves or our families, I think that this applies to the situation of parenting, is to pause, reflect, action, tweak, repeat.
100%. That is parenting in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
So anybody who's thinking about having kids and haven't had them yet, that is parenting in a nutshell.
That's right. So for me, that's the summary of it all, is just and reflection is that huge piece, isn't it? But it's not just reflecting. If you're not going to reflect, tweak it, take different action, then stop again and then repeat by reflecting and then tweaking and then action.
Know, like, it's not going to be the same every time. I mean, these little people, they're humans in their own right, going through their experiences in their own way. So don't expect just because yesterday something worked for it to work again tomorrow. You might have to take a different approach again with that. Do you know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
It's just remembering that.
And there are so many areas where we could really veer this conversation and talk for about another 2 hours, from, from choices of people pleasing to our values to, self-regulation and intrinsic motivation.
I just hope today that we've given your listeners something to just think about, something that they're able to take away and apply, that might help their child who is having a little bit of a hard time, and is non-resilient to things. I think, if they can just take away that one little thing, it'd be fantastic.
Yeah. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you give, say, in your list of, when you're doing parenting, consulting or coaching to help with resilience?
No, I think we've covered most of it today, especially when it comes to awareness, and the language that you use and just giving your child that space. Really, that's what it really comes down to, in my opinion.
So how do people find you?
You can find me on my website, maryloucoombe.com, or on Facebook, Orchestrate Parenting Hub with Mary Lou Coombe. And I'm on Instagram as well under Mary Lou Coombe. So they're my three main ways to connect.
You've also got a really good book on gratitude.
Yes, I have written a couple of workbooks on gratitude to help you with your neural pathways and changing your perception from negative to positive in the world.
Oh, brilliant. And I will put all of that on the show notes. So I think that's enough for today to wrap it up. So thank you, everyone, for listening. I'm Lisa Entwistle. I'm an integrated life, clarity and wellbeing coach, a workplace wellbeing consultant, event facilitator and host. To find out a little bit more about my services or any upcoming events, you can visit my website at www.wealthyliving, that's WELLTHY living.com.au, or you can connect with me on all my social media channels. If you have enjoyed this episode, I'd love you to subscribe, to rate it, to review it on iTunes so that it can reach more people. So thank you again, Mary Lou, for coming in today.
Thank you, gorgeous.
And I would love to just end today's episode until the next time I meet with you with a quote that I love that you shared with me by Henry Ford, and that's, whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right.